So The Last of Us episode 4 aired on Sunday. We watched it on Sunday. We were on vacation. Yeah. We got back. We tried to record the review last night. Some issues happened, and now here we are again. 2 days late. That's okay. Let's get into it.
Let's get into
shall we? All right. So, starting at the beginning here, we get Ellie. And she is doing her Travis Bickle impersonation, looking at herself in the mirror, asking if you're talking to me. And no, we don't get that, but pretty similar. You know, a point I was trying to make last night before we shut this off was, shut off the recording, not the episode. We watched the whole episode.
Watch the whole thing.
I've watched it a few times. Ellie is drawn to strength and violence because she wants to be self-sufficient. And she sees in Joel this protector that she can aspire to. She's never had a father. You know, in episode 1, after Joel beats this guy to death, or is beating this guy to death, you know, I saw a lot of people commenting on Ellie's, fascination and even, excitement to this kind of behavior. And I think what people seem to not understand is that Ellie was born into this world, right? She doesn't have the past, the civilized society. You know, she is a good person for, in this world.
Yeah, for this world.
For this world, she's a good person, right? But this is a survival of the fittest kind of world. And, she's a 14-year-old girl who has nobody anymore, right? And so she definitely values strength.
Yeah.
And a leader that can show her how to survive.
Absolutely.
So, yes, and a father, right? A father figure. She never had one. She doesn't even know who her mother is. She asks Marlene, who's, obviously not her mother, if she's her mother, because she's just kind of so lost and wanting to feel like she has control over things. And Joel gives her that. There is this kind of, kinship between them where they're like this perfect match for one another. She needs a father. He needs a daughter.
Yeah.
Right? They don't think they want these things, but they're going to soon learn how much they need these things.
Yeah, I definitely think Ellie wants it more than Joel. I think she's more aware of that, missing part of her life. And I do think that it is, as much as, she's a product of the world that she lives in and, the post-apocalyptic environment, I do think that there is, the standard teenage drive to be stronger that I think a lot of people go through. They want to seem like they're bigger and tougher than they really are. But for her, it obviously has life or death consequences.
Yeah. And when you try to start comparing Ellie to Sarah and the replacement that Ellie might become, there's definitely commonality in Sarah and Ellie, right? There's an intelligence and a wit and a sarcasm and this kind of back and forth giving each other shit. In the first episode, we get a lot of this back and forth, shit talking to one another.
Yeah.
Between Joel and Sarah, and now we're starting to get it very heavily with Joel and Ellie. We see it throughout. Really. Just even from episode 2 on, it's really just been cracks at one another. Is there anything bad in there? Only you, which he does twice, right? And now Ellie has graced us with the pun book,
yes.
Which it is interesting how when you're a massive fan of source material, and especially video games, right? Because video games are a similar medium where you get to see the video and you get to see the performances, right? As opposed to like a book or, comic or something. We've already seen these scenes play out. We already know the pun book. We already know the gay porno magazine. Like, we already know that stuff, but like getting to see it, I don't know. I've talked about this in every episode so far, but I can't help but say it again. Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann just seem to really understand what the audience who's watching from being gamers and having an attachment to the source material, they really just seem to understand exactly what is important to us and what isn't.
Yeah.
And that's like, they know exactly what to adapt, exactly. And they know exactly what they have wiggle room on, where they could be like, well, we could just be loose with this stuff because, this will make this more interesting. And nobody has a huge attachment to this. The only thing I would say that maybe they missed out on in that way, because this is the only thing I've seen like a lot of backlash from fans of the game, is the interaction between Bill and Ellie. And
Sure.
people really wanted to see them go at each other. But I feel like, we're kind of getting that in Joel and her.
Yeah.
And it's, transcending that and is now becoming more of like a father-daughter thing, which is that relationship. So I feel like it's just kind of condensed into their relationship only, and bringing Bill into the matter is just going to be, another version of that's almost unnecessary. So I'm fine with it because, we get enough of it. We get that banter back and forth between Joel and Ellie where they're kind of yelling at each other like, hey, fuck you, man, I didn't ask for this. And it's like, that makes two of us, right? Or like, give me a break, man, it's my second fucking day in a car,
right?
Stuff like that. You do get that like resilience to one another, and they're at odds with one another, but then the relationship is able to get stronger. So I don't really care. Like, would I have liked to see Bill and Ellie interact? Sure. Do I really care? Not really.
No, I think that, like you were saying, it really is just kind of like a duplicate of how Joel and Ellie are interacting in the first episode or two, where they're just kind of, Joel's really gruff and doesn't want to connect with her. And that's how Bill acts towards Ellie in the game, really. Like, he doesn't have any interest in her at all as like a companion or as a daughter or anything. It's kind of just like, you're another kid that's gonna die probably, like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. So I feel like that was not necessary for the show. And the way that it's been adapted for television, all of the things that we get like added into the show do so much service to the story and to the characters and their backstories, and just getting like a deeper look into who they are. We were talking earlier today about Tess and Joel, and I mean, obviously we've moved on from Tess, but just there's so much more depth to the relationships. And with this episode, we get to see Joel and Ellie's relationship deepen, which was really cool because, obviously the game is, it's a different storytelling like medium.
Yeah.
So we can do they can do a lot more, I should say, with television in terms of the narrative.
Now, I know that Druckmann is involved, right? And I know that he's very heavily involved. But Mazin is getting the credit for writing all of these episodes when it says, written for the screen by Craig Mazin. So I'm going to assume that Mazin is the one that's doing the majority of the heavy lifting when it comes to the adaptation side of things, and just kind of running it past Neil to just make sure he's got his blessing and to bounce ideas off of him and whatnot. So I'm going to give most of the credit to Mazin here, but like, what's so brilliant about this adaptation and why it works so well, and why I think that this is like a flawless adaptation so far, and that's like the point, is that it's an adaptation. It's taking source material and it's adapting it to a different medium, and it's telling it in a different way, but keeping the core elements alive so that it feels like something familiar while being something new. And I think what Mason is doing is he's taking kind of minor elements and he's weaving them into the story, not just as cute little fan service Easter eggs, but actual like plot strengthening and character developing, symbols, and like for instance, the pun book, right? Like, it's exciting, right? Like, we all saw, like, Riley comes in. I don't want to talk spoilers for something people haven't seen that don't know the video game, so I'm not gonna say too much about this, but I should say that us gamers, we know where the book came from. Right? Like, we know the significance of it, and it's really just an Easter egg, like, to throw in typically, right? So, but Mason is so much smarter than, oh, look, Ellie has the pun book, right? It's different than that. So what he's done is he's taken this episode, and the pun book is what brings them together, right? So it's not just, oh, hey, look, Ellie has the pun book and she's going to tell a couple cute jokes. It's the way that she is finally able to start connecting with Joel, right? So, like, it starts with her pulling the joke book up at the gas station, right? He's immediately, like, taken aback. He's like, what's happening right now? Because Joel is so ingrained into this world, he forgot that kind of, like, humor and that kind of behavior even existed. He's hanging out with Tess. He's hanging out with these smugglers. He's hanging out with, the Fireflies when he was with his brother and whatever. So Joel's world now is very dark, right? Like, there's no humor to it anymore. And being around a kid is not something he's familiar with, right? He hasn't been around a kid much, to our knowledge, since Sarah. Not one being whimsical and lighthearted and fun and trying to make jokes. So he's like very shocked at first and very opposed to this. You can see he's just like, no, please, like, you can wait in the car. Like, he does not want it because, of course, I mean, there's that part of Joel that is shut off to caring about Ellie because he doesn't want to relive the worst moment of his life, right? Like, he does not want to ever care for someone like Sarah again, so he's just shut himself off. Like I was telling Kaylee about this scene from the first episode where Tess is like, I never asked you to feel the way I feel. Joel has shut his emotions off. Even when he has this intimate relationship with Tess, it's more about survival. Right. And part of that survival is sexuality. It's anything. It's just like what you do to get by, right? And so with Ellie, she comes at him in a different way than I'm sure most people have ever tried. Tess never tried to change him. No. Tess never tried to get through to him like that. And Ellie's coming at him from a place that no one else can, because no one else he's been around can remind him of his daughter. Right. So it's interesting to see how this starts. We bring in the pun book as this Easter egg, and it's like, oh, great, she's going to throw out some of these puns, and I love that part of the game. When we get Ellie doing any of the puns out of any of the pun books, it's wonderful. But for Mason to take it and to actually incorporate it into character development, to take the pun book and to first, like, show us where Joel is. He's shut off. He's like, absolutely not. The second time the pun book is brought back up is the first night they're trying to sleep, right? And she tells him, like, can I ask you a serious question? Catches him off guard, does the scarecrow thing. He turns around. They have this real, like, awkward pause where she's kind of looking at him like, and he gives in, and he knows this. And this tells us two things. Number one, he's opening up a little bit. He's letting his guard down a little bit, right? He's outstanding in his field. Like, he's allowing this to happen, right? But he's also showing another important thing, that he's a dad, right?
Sure.
This is a dad joke.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they're called, right?
Yeah.
The puns are the dad jokes. Like, there's that part of him being resurrected. Yeah. It's a pun. It's a dad joke. He knows the joke because he was a dad, right? And he's either heard that joke or he has that wit of a dad that's able to be like, he's analyzing it in his head. And my kids try to get me to do puns all the time. They'll come at me with a pun, and if they give me like 5 seconds, I can almost always come up with the joke answer. So to see his guard come down, right? And for him to like say it, but then like turn over and just be like, no, never mind. Like, I'm not having anything to do with this. And then the third time when it comes up, the final time, before they go to bed once again, is once he finally gives into it. And this is the first time we ever see Joel laugh. This is the first time we see him smile, break a smile, anything.
Oh my gosh, it's
right? So she is finally, they get to share this really sweet moment together. And it just, that all came from incorporating an Easter egg from the video game that otherwise a lot of writers would just either throw in there as like a, they pan past it with the camera and people are, oh, the pun book, right? No. Or like she tells a couple jokes and that's it. No. It is critical to their development. And this is why this show is the greatest adaptation of a video game, or pretty much anything I've ever watched, because it takes everything we love and it just makes it real, and it makes it so much better.
Yeah, well, like it's not just some cute Easter egg, like you said. Like the items that are incorporated into the show from the game, like those smaller bits, actually serve a purpose for the characters and their journey together. And I mean, I think you said it well. Like Joel and Ellie are kind of made for each other. They really are, and that sort of is like this, destiny, or maybe even like perfect storm in a way, right? Where they fit together really well, and the show's perfect right now.
Sure
and
is.
Probably will continue to be.
Yeah, I don't see that changing.
No,
I can't imagine it.
Even with so we get Melanie Linsky. I always want to call her Lewinsky. Which is
Monica
not,
Lewinsky.
Her character and everything
Kathleen.
that happens, Kathleen, with this episode, that's also really cool because, in the game, we come across hunters, and, I don't want to spoil things, but at the end of this episode, we see 2 people, and which most likely, which we know,
Henry
it's
and
Henry and
Sam.
Sam.
Nobody's an idiot.
But,
well, some people are idiots.
Kathleen is a character that's just created for the show. I mean, there might be, we kind of were suspecting that there was a character that's mentioned in the game that we never actually meet, that perhaps was the influence. But I don't know if that's the case, but I don't know. I'm very curious about her story and like what's going to happen with her involvement, because I think that it's just another way that they're like really expediting, like, okay, we need to get the characters from this part to this part in the story. Like, how do we do that without too much, like unnecessary, just like violence or action or whatever. And this is, having her character now a part of it gives motivation for so many other things to happen.
What The Last of Us has always done really well, and what it improves upon within its sequel, is it takes what we typically know, especially from video games, and we have these faceless, humanless kind of villains that are just there as cannon fodder for action sequences. It kind of flips that on its head, especially in Game 2. I mean, Game 2 is just the magnum opus of flipping that idea on its head. And if you take Game 1, for instance, and you have like Joel killing people, there is some NPC kind of like banter of like, hey, fuck you. And we actually get kind of a nod to that. The guy who yells at him as he shoots one of the other guys is very reminiscent of the game. But if you fast forward to Game 2, when you kill somebody or like when someone goes missing, these characters have names.
Yeah. Right?
Like they'll start calling out, the NPCs will start calling out like, hey, Joe! Yeah. Oh man, he killed Frank.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They give them like a like a soul. right? They give
them the name,
a personality, a life, right? And that's something that we're getting here, right? The hunters in the game are just, an obstacle to hurdle, right? It's you're on the way. In the game, it's Pittsburgh. In the show, they switched it to Kansas City. It doesn't really matter. We listened to the official podcast for The Last of Us. Definitely recommend heavily.
Yes.
But they just said it was because it was easier to replicate Kansas City than it was to do Pittsburgh. So I honestly could care less what city it is. It doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, not at all.
But we're in the game, right? You're just passing through these and these enemies get in the way so that you can have an action sequence, right? And you see the horrors that they've committed and you want them dead. They're just faceless enemies.
Sure.
Right? And this one, much different, right? Like we very much humanize the enemy. And Kathleen is the face, right? She's the head of the snake who has motive and she has, drive and she has reasoning for what she's doing, right? Her brother was killed. She's pissed off. She's taken down Fedra, but you become what you hate, right?
Yeah.
They've stolen Fedra's vehicles. They're treating people like Fedra. They're executing people, right? They're blaming things on people. They don't even know if they did it, right? Like 2 people kill these guys, and so they immediately blame Henry and Sam because why not? It's an older guy and a kid.
So
it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It might as well just be Henry and Sam. That's what she wants it to be, so that's what she's making it. So there's this great scene where Joel is, in a situation where he's going to be killed. He's losing this battle. He's finally, not able to be the victor in his fight. And Ellie has stolen a gun, and she is going to save Joel. She does. And instead of, like in the game, right? So in the game, this happens much later. This happens once they get much further. No spoilers. But regardless, this happens, and a couple things are massively different. Number one, the guy who she shoots dies instantly. I shot the shit out of that guy, huh?
Yeah.
That kind of shit. No, this guy lives, right? And he's sitting there and he's begging and pleading. I haven't seen a guy beg and plead for his life like this in a while. This was like sad and pathetic.
Really sad.
And you were like, oh God, like I have a mom and I didn't know, and we can be friends and we can trade.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
My name is Brian. I think it's Brian.
Yeah, he's terrified, and it humanizes him instantly because even though they're attacking them and they were trying to trick them and all this stuff, it's like Joel's been there. Like he's been out in the world surviving, and he's done a lot of shitty stuff. Like both him and Tess, acknowledge this, and that's kind of the world that they live in, right? Where it's like, but obviously people have a choice, right? Like you do have a choice whether or not you want to be an asshole, but in that scenario, like in this universe, it is kind of a survival of the fittest a lot of the time. And that goes with the whole question of like, is humanity worth saving if this is how we all act? When the rule of law kind of deteriorates and we're left with our animal instincts, do we just start killing each other for food and shelter and whatever instead of helping, one another thrive and survive? But, so Joel, seeing this person telling the audience too, like, I have a name, I have a mom, like, I made a mistake, I don't want to die, because of course not, was tough. It was really tough. And Ellie's reaction to it, like, she's definitely got like a dark streak in her for sure, which I do think is because of the world that she lives in. I mean, how could you not? You kind of have to have that part of you to feel like you can, do things that you wouldn't normally do, right? But she's definitely freaked out by his response. Because if he had just been dead instantly, there's no, like, backlash from that.
Yeah.
But dealing with the fact that, like, oh no, like, now you have to follow through with it, which she doesn't. Joel instead finishes the act, but it was tough. It was tough to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, Joel kills him with his peace offering.
Yeah.
Right? He offers him his knife, and Joel stabs him with it. And there's nothing, like, glorious about it. This is like the opposite of, like, John Wick or something, where action is glorified. I love the John Wick movies, don't get me wrong, but this is a much more realistic, grounded take on what it takes to take a life. A lot of takes going on there. A lot of takes. But that's exactly what it is. It's to taking, activity. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good spin on the scene because, Ellie, admits to him a little later on when he's like apologizing because he feels like it's his fault, because another change from the game is we take Joel, who is like, he's a video game character. He's a superhuman. Like, we get shot and we just put on some freaking cloth and we're fine. Right. But in this world, Joel has suffered damage from the life he's lived. Yeah. And he's gone almost completely deaf in one ear. And this becomes his Achilles heel. And, he falls asleep on that ear. And that's why he doesn't hear Henry and Sam sneak up on them. And he tells her that, like, this lifestyle has a price. Right? Like, it's never clean. There's always going to be a price to pay. Yeah. And this is why he's like, and of course you live in a resource scarce world, right? So him using a knife, it's not only showing how, like, disconnected he can be from making it that personal. A lot of people use guns because it creates distance. Of course. Right? And it evens the playing field. Like, no matter how strong you are, nobody can take a bullet to the head. Right. I guess technically could. Some people not in the right place. No. Like, if you get shot just luckily enough in the right place. Oh, my skull is so strong. Yes, no.
Well, the other thing too that this, like, and people who have played the second game, I think, will understand it, but it muddies the water of villains, Yes. And that's so important for the story of The Last of Us, because people aren't black and white, and especially in video games, it's really easy to just paint people as black and white, because you're just like, I'm here for the violence and the action, I just want to shoot and kill. But then when you translate that into live action storytelling, like, it's different. Your brain really does have, like, a disconnect when it comes to, like, playing a video game versus seeing, like, real life people in those same situations, Yeah. So.
Well, as I'd said, I think that The Last of Us has always done a good job of blurring this line and finding this gray area where people are people and everyone makes their choices. And as we know, and as you're going to find out, and as this game will educate you on, that, our characters that we love aren't the good guys. And there are consequences to your actions. Yeah. So that's all I'll say on that matter. But that is a very valuable lesson that this show is going to teach you. If you're open to listen to it. Right. Some people aren't. Yeah. Some people very much aren't. Anyways, so as far as another cool, exciting thing, we got the porno mag scene, which I kind of talked about, but they did it exactly the same. Exactly. He gets the Hank Williams tape. It's the same song. It's the one we heard in the trailer, but it's the exact same one that they're listening to in the car. Yeah. The lyrics of that are, what ended up giving us the title of this episode. And, of course, with The Last of Us, with this show, with the game, with everything, the lyrics are always very important and symbolic to what's happening within those scenes and within that episode or that part of the storyline. So it was amazing to see that play out exactly the same. And Bella Ramsey is just so good at all the different ranges that she's had to exhibit so far. Like, I love Pedro Pascal. I think he's wonderful. But so far, Joel has mostly been one note. There's a lot to that one note, right? There's a lot of subtlety. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, I'm not saying that there isn't range going on there. There is. It's just range limited. Right? He's this closed off guy. He's not that bright. He's not that good of a person. He's damaged, right? And he kind of keeps it really right there, right? We get to see a little of it open up when he's laughing. And I'm not saying by any means that this isn't complicated. It's what he's doing is amazing, truly. But Ellie is all over the place, right? We've seen Ellie in all sorts of different stages. Yes, right? We have. From confined and angry and kind of feral to like happy and joking and loose and fun. We've seen her dark side where she's kind of dissecting this infected stalker as it's trapped. We've seen all sorts of different, and we're gonna get more. Like when we meet Riley and we're gonna get so much more. Ellie is such a more complex character because she has such a range of emotion. She allows herself to feel. Yeah. And Joel has shut himself off. So Bella Ramsey is just incredible. And anybody who was... I think most people are like, even though she doesn't look it or whatever, who gives a shit if she looks like the character? You're gonna cast somebody based on just what they look like. I know, like you'd be losing so much doing that because no one is going to play Ellie better. They might be able to play it just as good, but I don't think you could play Ellie better than Bella Ramsey has thus far.
Well, and like the whole thing with like the video game, right? Like that's why you have voice actors and then you have the models themselves. Like it's not always the same person.
Ellie doesn't look like Ashley Johnson.
No. Right. So, yeah, I think
that But Merle Dandridge looks like Merle Dandridge. So sometimes they do the face.
Sometimes, yes, that's true. Yeah. But she's doing a phenomenal job, and just like knowing where the story goes, especially where things could go in season 2, or just in general whenever they get to the next game, I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be incredible to see her interpretation and performance there. But yeah.
And speaking of voice actors, we get a very exciting star in this that you just see him in the scenes, and as anybody who hasn't played the game doesn't give a shit. But Jeffrey Pierce, who does the voice for Tommy in the games, Diego Luna's character, Gabriel Luna. I want to call him. I did this before. Yeah. There's some. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Tommy from the games. His name in this is Perry. Pretty sure.
That's right, yeah. Perry.
Yeah, Perry. He plays Melanie Linsky's Kathleen's sidekick, the guy with the beard and the gun who's walking around with her. Very exciting to see. Yeah, very, very exciting to see. We have yet to see Ashley Johnson. We've yet to see Troy Baker. We did see Merle Dandridge, right? And we saw Jeffrey Pierce now. I don't know who else we might see. But so far, that was very cool to see. Yes. I know who Ashley's playing, which is perfection. Yeah. And I have no idea how that's going to play out.
I know.
Because that's nothing that we've ever seen before.
I know. I'm like, when is it going to happen? It could happen anytime at all because it's,
I think it will happen in episode 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I can't say why. But I think we're going to get the DLC stuff.
That would be a good time to incorporate it for sure.
6. Okay. I think that makes the most sense of where to put that. Yeah. Because it's right in the middle. And this next episode, I can't see any of the DLC stuff coming into it.
Neither can I.
Right.
I think we're going to be really...
It's going to be during...
Focused on a specific...
the winter.
Right. Yeah.
We'll just say that. Yeah. So anyway... moving on from that. Now, we have Kathleen, who has decided to put her vengeance for what happened to her brother and her people. She's blinded by revenge. This is going to become a huge theme in the future of the show. Just think about that. Keep that. Save that for later.
Yep.
She has put her, quest for revenge ahead of the safety of her people. And Perry is going along with her on this, but there is trouble, looming,
brewing, bubbling,
buried,
and
under the ground. And we get this kind of, we get this threat that it's a bloater.
It is.
It's a bloater.
1,000% it's that.
But she knows it is this threat. They know what this is. And they don't want to say it because they want to keep everyone focused on what she wants them to keep focused on. And that is finding Henry and Sam at all costs. And when I say all costs, I mean all costs.
Sure. Yeah, she's not being a very good leader right now because she's definitely...
she's a hypocrite.
Yeah, she's being hypocritical and she's not putting her people's needs first, for sure. So,
I mean, she executes the guy who delivered her as a baby.
Oh my gosh, you got to think like in this world, anyone with medical training,
oh my goodness,
you don't kill those people, right? Which, I mean, is kind of ironic, for other things that might happen without giving stuff away.
All right, all right now.
But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we get that exchange. Joel gives Ellie the gun. This is much earlier than in the games.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't get a gun for a long while, and it is after, slightly thereafter, she kills this guy. The exchange between Joel and Ellie in the game is different. He's really upset with her and mad with her, and in this he's much more sympathetic. We also find out that Ellie states that this is not the first time that she's had to do this, and we get minor changes like this where in this episode she's talking about how this is my second day in a car, man. She's so excited in episode 3 of looking around. She's like, it's like a spaceship, and he's like, it's the first time you've ever been in a car, and she's like, and in the game, she gets in the front seat and they're like, you do this and you do this to to pop a clutch. And she's like, I know how to pop a clutch.
Right,
and she knows how to pop a clutch, and she drives off. So she's definitely been in a car before.
Sure. Yeah.
So little things like that, but they did keep the fact that she can't swim, right?
Yes.
She has never been in a car in this version, and she has been in a car in the other version, but Ellie just can't swim.
She can't swim no matter what.
She can't catch a break with swimming. So you got that. And then, so you've got this hidden issue that's looming and buried beneath the ground, but is going to be popping up here in the next episode, I'm sure, 100%. Yes. And we're going to see the showdown. Now, what happened? Why Henry and Sam are on the run? I like that Sam has this face paint on because I know that in the game now I don't know if that's spoilers or not, so we won't say any of that. But we'll say that he has these pictures of superheroes, and he wants to be this superhero, so he's got on a superhero mask that he's made for himself. So I thought that was cool. And of course the diarrhea joke that makes them both laugh was such a wonderful moment.
Oh my gosh.
For these characters. And I think we're finally going to be past the, butting heads relationship between Joel and Ellie. There will still be that protective, you need to do what I'm saying.
Sure.
And she's going to be pushing back on that. And we know when they get to Tommy's, things are going to get a little wilder between them. But regardless, I do think that a lot of that gruffness will be sanded away.
Yeah, I think so too. I think she's definitely wormed her way finally into Joel's heart, even if he might not want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
So
the shots of everything in this, of the cities and the bridges and the cars, and we actually get an explanation. Oh my God, this might be one of the first times, if not the first time I've ever heard it, is we actually get an explanation for why there's clear paths on freeways.
Right.
I've watched 1,000 apocalyptic films in my life, and they're always driving through these paths on freeways where the cars are parted, and I'm like, in reality, it would just be bumper to bumper to bumper, and then everyone would die, and there'd be no way to drive through them. But Joel says that they took plows, and they pushed through all the cars and cleared a path for the tanks. She was like, I want to see a tank. And she actually does see a tank. She's looking out the window, and you see a bunch of them, like, degrading on the side of the road. But we're going to get that, like, Humvee tank that's coming after them. It has, like, Run on the front of it. That's like another plow type of truck. But it was really exciting. Stupid things like that, where you're like,
yeah,
they actually explain this.
Sure. And they do the same thing with, like, the gasoline and how it would be super watered down after so many years.
Sure, it breaks down.
So you can't get as many miles per gallon whenever you drive.
I don't know how accurate that is.
I don't either, but it's
yeah.
It's nice to have, like, as an added detail. I
do know that gasoline only has a shelf life of a very short amount of time. And then it starts to break down. But how useful it would be in a car after 20 years of sitting in another tank, I don't know. Does anyone know? Maybe it really would. Maybe a full tank would burn really fast and only get you like an hour of driving versus like 6-7 hours. And the line of, like, you know, we used to be able to drive for forever on these things. Where'd you go? Pretty much nowhere. Yeah. That kind of stuff is great. Him trying to explain how the siphon works is really funny. I think, what's he gonna do? Is he gonna fucking, like, get into it? Does he really know how it works? I don't know. Maybe not. But I don't know. He does a good job.
Yeah.
You know,
he knows how to work one, so
yeah,
that's important. Even if he doesn't 1,000% understand how it works. But
it has to do with the pressure.
Yes.
The air pressure outside and the pressure inside the tank. It pushes against it and pushes the fluid out because the air pressure is pushing in against the pressure that there's very little pressure inside. That's how that's how a siphon works. But I don't know. He did an okay job.
Yeah, I totally think so.
He's a freaking, you know, he's a contractor.
Yeah, I mean,
he's smart. He's smart in that
smart
way.
Enough
We're all smart in our own ways.
Yes.
Right?
But I think Ellie's just a little shit.
And Joel's not a genius in every aspect, nor is anybody. Movie characters are always too goddamn smart.
Yeah.
Right? That's true. Unless they're in horror movies, then they're morons.
And then they're, really dumb.
And they're the complete opposite.
Yeah.
We watched this 2 days ago. I'm trying to remember.
If we forgot.
I hate it.
We talked about Kathleen.
There's so many things that I go back and I think about when we've done our reviews, and I'm like, oh, I didn't say this.
Right.
Oh man, I forgot this thing, and it pisses me off. And I try to always remember, but as soon as we stop recording, I'm gonna be like, oh no.
Oh yeah, this.
We didn't talk about this.
Yeah.
The shootout between Joel and the two hunters was very reminiscent of the game. Ellie crawling through the wall and then removing debris to get the door open for Joel. Joel giving Ellie a boost up onto something.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Them climbing up the stairs. The looting. Yes. All that stuff. Like, that's all those, like, tiny... Those are Easter eggs.
Yes.
Right? Those are for us, period. Yeah. Right? Like, the gay porn mag scene, though.
Oh, it was so wonderful.
That was something I wanted so much.
I know. So perfectly recreated.
Yeah. I've never been so happy to see gay porn in my entire life. Now just the Savage Starlight comic. It's coming.
It's gotta coming.
There's no way we're not seeing one, man.
It's gonna pop up.
If we saw Curtis and Viper 2, which was something I had forgotten to mention when we talked about episode 1.
Right.
When Sarah brings him that DVD, which of course is an Easter egg to Game 2, when Ellie's talking about how Joel likes those kinds of movies and that they were going to have a movie night and they were going to watch Curtis and Viper 4, I want to say was what they said in the game. Or no, she said there's 4 of them at this point, and Dina was like, Dinah, right?
Dinah.
Dina or Dinah? It's Dinah.
Dinah?
It's Dinah. I think it's Dinah. She was like, damn, like, now you got me interested in these. Anyways, enough geeking out. I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's really it. We get the Kathleen stuff with Perry. They're hiding the secret. She wants revenge. What did Henry do?
That's
I'm
all
assuming
gonna be...
he has something to do with her brother's death.
Sure,
he sold them out, or she thinks he sold them out. I don't know.
That's what she's thinking, whether or not it's true. People were selling, the doctor is accused of giving information to Fedra. Yeah. Right? To rat people out. So she's assuming that that's what Henry did for her brother, which could be true.
How long has the Kansas City QZ been taken over?
I don't know.
By the Hunters?
I don't know.
It seems recent.
It does seem recent, but I don't feel like it's recent in the game. I mean, obviously they're not in Kansas City.
Right.
But I feel like it's been a little while in the game that they've been like that. But at least in this show, it does feel like it's happened pretty recently. Because they still have, there's a good amount of people still there. Yeah. Not as much as maybe we saw it in Boston, but...
I'll be curious on if we see the darker side of the Hunters. Mm-hmm. Because in the game, they walk into a room, and the Hunters are up to some real bad stuff.
Really bad stuff. Yeah.
So, did they take that out because they're trying to humanize them and blur that line and make it a little more gray? But I don't know. She goes in and executes her doctor. Yeah. Cold-bloodedly. Yes. And then lies to all her people about this imminent threat that's just, right at the surface level. So, they're not painting her in a good light.
No, they're not.
I guess they just probably... I don't know. One of the only downsides, and this is because I'm a gorehound and whatever, the show has definitely taken down the violence and the gore for sure. And I feel like Craig maybe decided to opt out of the room that Joel and Ellie finds just because he doesn't want to show that.
Yeah, I could see that being the case.
So it might be in the next episode. So I'm not going to say anything.
Right.
If we don't see it by next episode, it ain't going to happen, and then we'll talk about what it is. But other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about everything. If we forgot something that you wanted to hear talked about, or you think that we're missing, absolutely let us know. Yes. I feel like I went through every jump. I mean, as I said, he talks to her. He feels like he failed her, because he couldn't hear the guy coming through the room. So he's apologizing. This is what gives them the gun training thing. Right. And this is Bella Ramsey as Ellie. Yeah. Just everything. She has everything down. Yeah. And maybe one of my favorite scenes, if not my favorite moment with her, because it's so genuine as a kid and as Ellie and everything, is when Joel's trying to teach her how to shoot the gun, and he teaches her how to get a proper hold on it, and then he tries to take the gun from her, and he can't because she now knows how to defend herself properly, and she feels like she now has a leg up on the competition, that she's learning something from him to now be as strong as him. And so she learns this move where she's holding onto the gun like this, thumb over the thumb, whatever, finger off the trigger, that kind of stuff. And he pushes up on the gun and it doesn't release from her hand. And she just laughs. Yeah, it's such an authentic reaction. And very, very, kid-like, too. That moment where you're you just discover something. Yeah. And you learn. Yeah. And for him to be the one showing her, it's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Bella Ramsey is the best. And she has her work cut out for her in Game 2. For sure. Holy shit. If they cover Game 2, almost exact. Oh my gosh, I know. She has such a load to carry. She sure does. My God. Yeah. We're going to be asking so much from her. She can do it. I see no reason to believe anything to the contrary. So, phenomenal casting, phenomenal writing. The show only gets better, and as of right now, I mean, this absolutely has. I already think that I prefer the story and the way the story is being handled. I already prefer it to everything we have so far to this point in the game. I said I didn't think this was going to happen, but it is happening. I do believe they're telling this story better, but they should.
Yes, of
right?
course. They have.
They already
more,
have it.
Yeah.
They have the time and the resources to be able to tell it
Yeah.
in a lengthier version, but also they already have the template. They already have the masterpiece. And then they can just take it and evolve it. Yeah. Right? And make it better. And that's what they're doing. And a lot of people don't do that. So it's not easy. Not at all. But they're doing it. You're doing it, Peter.
I don't know if I'm not going to say which I prefer yet. I'm going to wait until the end because I kind of still have them separated in my mind. Sure. But I'm definitely super impressed with how the show's going right now. So.
Fair. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you. By the way, Friday. The episode drops on Friday because of the Super Bowl, not Sunday, just in case you guys missed that for anyone who's still here.
Friday.
We'll see you Friday night. Bye. Bye.